Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Fuck Calories podcast. We're going to be talking about some new current events that just happened in the world of GLP-1s. Soleil, can you tell us a little bit about the big news that just occurred?
Yes, very exciting for the GLP-1 called Liraglutide. Now, Liraglutide is the generic name of either Victoza or Saxenda that you guys might have heard of. Now, this one has been out a lot longer compared to Ozempic, Wegovy, Zepbound, Mounjaro that you guys might have heard of. So that is the reason it's actually gone generic. So it is just released. What we mean by going generic is that pharmaceutical companies that put a lot of research into these medications and peptides have the right to sell them exclusively for a number of years, right? And then when that expires, we then have the generics that come out under the generic name, and now more people have access. With the caveat of 6 months in between the brand name and generic. So tell us a little bit more about this deal that we have going on and where we're at with the liraglutide.
Absolutely. So liraglutide actually does have weight loss. I know that it's not one of the ones that we commonly hear about, and the reason for that is that its weight loss is not as powerful as like Wegovy or Ozempic when it first came out. In fact, Ozempic had was the first of the major weight loss. And so that's why it got famous for that. But liraglutide, whenever patients would be on it for diabetes, they were having weight loss anywhere from 6 to 10% of their body weight, which is not a lot.
Mhm.
But if someone could get liraglutide for like super cheap, then absolutely I would do that over these gazillion-dollar medications that we currently
Right.
have for the rest of the GLP-1s. So you and I were talking about when the patent came off a few weeks ago. We were super excited for it to come out and for like the all of the different generics and for them to be dirt cheap.
Yeah.
And then it turns out they were not,
No.
as there was conspicuously only one generic that came out, and it was still crazy, crazy expensive. And you and I were like, what is going on? Turns out we discovered in this process that after the patent expires, there's a 6 month period of what's called, what it is even called? Generic exclusivity? Is that what
Yep.
we said it's called?
180-day generic exclusivity.
And what does that mean exactly?
So for 180 days, which is roughly 6 months to us, there is exclusive rights for one pharmaceutical company to
One
make
generic
the generic.
pharmaceutical company.
Correct. One generic pharmaceutical company to make the generic version. Here's what's interesting is that it's basically the first to file. So
Yeah.
there's a mad dash in these pharmaceutical companies that want the exclusive rights for the 180 days. Now, what that means is as patents start to expire, they release basically the data first that says, hey, this is how we make this medicine. This is how it's compounded. This is how it's, all this kind of stuff. Who is going to win the rights to get the basically 180 days? So 180 days after the patent expires, one company gets it, and it tends to be the first that files, which means I am basically in a running race, if you will, to fill out my application first and sit it in first. It's
Yeah.
not the best company. It's not the most outstanding customer service. It's not the most robust in its clinical field. It's
Production. Yeah.
literally the first to file,
Yeah.
which really is interesting. And I don't know why we do that, but we've been doing it since the 80s. So for 180 days, if you are the first to file, you win the right to make the generic version of whatever medication just lost its patent for 180 days. So now you are the only generic of that medication on the market for 6 months. What is interesting is that even though it's the generic version, the pricing is very close to brand name because you're the only one on the market. So
Yeah.
you can charge whatever you want to charge for the first 6 months. What this is looking like is Teva Pharmaceuticals is the company that won this 180-day generic exclusivity for liraglutide. They are now putting out generic versions of liraglutide, which is the generic version of Victoza and Saxenda. If you buy a 2-pack, the price is 200, sorry, the price for 2 pens, $470. The
Yeah.
price for 3 pens is over $700. And
Which is
that,
insanely
yeah,
expensive.
I was like, and that is the confusing part because these
Yeah.
are the generic versions.
Yeah,
And
because
the
I think everyone got so excited and we were expecting to see the price drop. And maybe people who
yes,
knew about this caveat, like knew to like, oh, hold your horses. It's not really gonna, price isn't really gonna drop yet. But for all of us who were like really excited, because we kept hearing, oh, the patent's gonna go out, patent's gonna go out. What a disappointment. I think I saw in one article that said over the course of 6 months, if you switch from like Saxenda or Victoza to the Tiva version, it would save you over this 180-day period, it would save you $100. Which exactly.
which
So I mean,
won't even give you a fourth of a pin or something like that, right? Like
well,
that's
like this, like the amount it would save the insurance company over 6 months if you like so
oh
you're exactly so like it's gonna save your insurance company a little bit, but like there's
yeah,
like no like I was excited because although I am on a tirzepatide, there is zero incentive for me to go from, an average of 22% weight loss down to something that's 6 to 11% weight loss
right,
when for $100 savings,
right,
Well,
yeah,
and it's not $100 savings because honestly, the liraglutide is more expensive than how I'm getting Manjaro, but or Zepbound. But the point being, or tirzepatide. But the point being is that uh it's gonna save the insurance company like a little bit of money. And I guess if you were paying for Victoza out of pocket, it would save you like a little bit of money. But it is definitely the letdown and definitely the disappointment that we were hoping to see, which I guess
yes.
now we just have to keep waiting another 6 months.
Absolutely, because what I will say is depending on your dose of your liraglutide, these pins are not lasting a month. Like the
No.
pins for Ozempic, Wegovy, and Mounjaro and Zepbound, one pin is usually 4 doses, and because it's weekly, that's a month. The pins for liraglutide are daily, so it's a daily injection, and depending on your dose, these pins might last anywhere between 2 to 6 days.
Right.
So
And
now
just as
my
for the
two
Zepbound and the Manjaro, it'd be like one box, for example. So it's
right.
4 pins in there, it'd be like one each week. But yeah, these like for Victoza and Saxenda, like this liraglutide pen is not gonna last you very long, especially if you're on a high dose.
Right, right. So now you're burning through these 2 packs, right, for $470 and what, less than 2 weeks, maybe, depending on your dose, because it's a daily
Yeah,
injection.
yeah,
And the 3 pack might last you 3 weeks, but we're not even close to a month and we're already over $700
right,
cash for a
right,
generic.
right.
Um, I can't foresee this be exciting news for anyone, right?
No, it's
I
not changing
think
the game at all.
yep. The exciting news will have to be held and probably until the new year, right? And so
Yeah,
2025 is maybe when the 180 days or 6 months of this exclusivity expires, and now there's more pharmaceutical companies that can make the generic. We know that when we have more competition in the market, it should bring down pricing.
yeah,
The difference is that we have not necessarily seen that across the board with pharmaceutical companies because they tend to monopolize and basically set pricing, if you will, for some of these medications. We see that a lot with insulin, right? Insulin tends to be very high for no good reason.
yeah,
These peptides are another, right? Last time I think we talked about the cost of some of these dosings is less than $1. And the fact that they're selling these medications for as much as they are is insane.
yeah.
So,
So I mean, we'll see in 6 months from now if there's enough of a driver, because at least like, maybe I shouldn't say this, but insulin is something that um you either need it or you don't, and either it's paid for or it's not. It's
mm,
unlike with the GLP-1s, there's a large market, I guess,
sure.
outside of just your ICD-10 code that your doctor puts on your chart,
Yeah.
So I wonder if the mechanics of the market
Mm,
will be, which first of all, fucking capitalism, but I wonder if the Amazon pharmacies and the Cost Plus Mark Cuban's pharmacy, I wonder if there will be a driver that will produce a little bit more competition
Mhm.
um, in the GLP-1 space than we have seen so far. So in uh, from other meds. So will you anyway, is anyone's guess at this point.
Right, right. I
Um,
really hope so because I think the more we can have access to these medications at a much lower cost, it
yeah,
really evens the playing field for a lot of people that maybe can't afford these newer GLP-1s, right? We're not going to see these new GLP-1s expiring their patents for another decade or so. So that's
yeah,
really unfortunate, right? For these new ones, the semaglutides and the tirzepatides and such, and even the newer peptides that are coming down the market, it's going to be even longer with those.
yeah. Yeah,
But
so we picked up some of them. So semaglutide, however you pronounce it, is maybe in 2026, but it looked like that was um, kind of when the company filed, but the actual Ozempic and Wegovy is not until December 2031, which is
wow,
like what? I can't do that math, like 7 years
right?
from now.
I was
And
like,
then
that's long. Yeah, too long for math. Yes.
exactly. And then tirzepatide, which is Zepbound and Mounjaro, is even further. It's 2036. So that's another 12 years away.
Mhm.
So that is like, feels a little hopeless to
Yes.
someone who's like, my life needs to change now. So anyway, for the time being, in 6 months now, liraglutide might be an option. Otherwise, I mean, we're just all continuing to use the savings card and or use compounding. Or, writing off insurance companies as being assholes and trying
Right.
to get legislation passed so that they can't carve out exclusivities or exclusions for obesity treatment.
Yeah, it's crazy because I think even we talked about at the beginning of this year how a
Mhm.
lot of insurance companies did that. And I
Yeah.
heard a lot more did even
One.
more exclusions come
Yeah.
basically, was it June 1st that they
I
announced that
think it was
again?
July 1 because it was like the
Okay.
6 month, like whatever. I don't really totally
Yep.
understand it, but it's like all the companies that hadn't done it yet, they like saw their friends that were doing it, not their friends, but they the other
Yeah.
companies, and they're like, oh, that's a good idea. Let's just do that. So then we don't have to pay for anyone's Wegovy.
Yep.
Um, it's pretty bullshit.
Yes.
But
So I
anyway,
know even patients that have been having it covered are no longer and basically got a letter in the mail and they said, so sorry.
shit all luck.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's where we are turning, I know in my clinic a lot to these compounding pharmacies, and luckily they're doing a great job. My
Yep.
patients are still getting great medications from them. Make sure
Yep.
you're finding a good pharmacy, right?
Beautiful.
Um, that is qualified to make these medications for you. But it's unfortunate when stuff like this happens, right? And we're going to see that it happens more and more, I think, as insurance companies start to dictate what physicians can and can't prescribe for their, for their patients and what they will and won't cover. And it's really unfortunate.
And these like, CEOs of this insurance company did not go to medical school, but they are practicing medicine effectively.
Yep. Yep. And telling us how to practice medicine, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of scary. It's unfortunate. I think this is something to look out for because the more people know basically about brands and generics and maybe this new 180-day exclusivity period, which I was not quite aware of. I didn't know that's how they were doing that because I just know which medications to prescribe.
Hey,
But it's another unfortunate thing, I think, in the world of capitalism that gives this company the right to make a generic version, but also put their pricing so sky high that it's not doing anyone a service, right? Like
yeah,
no one's getting any benefit from this
yeah,
right now. But I'm hoping that in another 6 months we will, and we will continue to see yeah, medication pricing go down and have it available for everyone.
yeah.
Right? Cross your fingers is right. We have no idea what the future holds for us, but yeah. But that's the new info, and we will keep coming at you with the new info as soon as we hear it. So we'll see you guys next time.